there's a launch today.
For nearly 40 years, Brenda Mulberry has owned a space-themed clothing shop not far from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where business was slow since space shuttle launches ended in 2011.
Whenever there's a launch
But this year, she says, is different.
Yeah, excitement is over the moon.
People are flocking to Mulberry's store to get anything they can related to NASA's new Artemis mission.
On a normal day, we might see 60, 70 people in a day in our store, and we're seeing hundreds and hundreds an hour.
Artemis, the agency's name for its ambitious program to return to the moon, is generating renewed interest in space exploration ahead of the launch of the first unmanned test flight of the Space Launch System, or SLS rocket, and the Orion capsule, which will eventually carry astronauts back to the moon more than 50 years after the last Apollo mission visited the lunar surface.
I call it the Artemis Generation, right? So Apollo had a twin sister, Artemis, and this is our generation.
Branielle Rodriguez is an integration manager for NASA's Orion capsule, which will house the astronauts.
And so I think it's a fantastic thing for us to be able to experience, be able to go explore and really put a presence on the moon.
It's amazingly cool.
NASA astronaut Stan Love says the Artemis program will feature diverse crews, paving the way for the first woman and person of color to make history on the lunar surface.
We don't know who's going.
We are going to broaden our demographics, so it won't be just white guys on the moon.
NASA's goals for Artemis are not short-term. The agency says it's planning for crewed missions to the moon for decades.
We're going to establish a permanent base, but I think, long-term, we want to go to Mars. NASA has said, this is a stepping stone to Mars eventually.
Doug Hurley is a retired NASA astronaut who now works on Artemis for Northrop Grumman, a government contractor specializing in aerospace and defense. While critics have pointed out Artemis is billions of dollars over budget and years behind schedule, Hurley says patience and expenditure will be rewarded.
It takes time to build these complicated machines, but it's worth it. I mean, when you look at NASA's budget, half of 1% of the federal budget. And SLS is a small part of NASA's budget. So to me, it's all perspective.
Space Shirt's owner Mulberry says critics of the program are hard to find on Florida's Space Coast.
See, all those are old.
She credits Artemis with boosting jobs and tourism in an area that suffered economically when the U.S. space shuttle program ended.
I think everybody in this area underestimated the power this was going to have.
Even though it's an unmanned test flight, when Artemis 1 takes off on a planned 6-week mission, it will provide valuable data for NASA and show how new systems function in space. The first crewed mission back to the moon, to orbit but not to land, is Artemis 2, currently scheduled for 2024, with Artemis 3 scheduled to return astronauts to the lunar surface as early as 2025. Kane, Farabaugh, VOA News, Kennedy Space Center, Florida.